If you go to the Senate website, the Arizona Senate, here it is, sorry. Our handle on Twitter is @AZSenateGOP. Our handle on Facebook is @AZSenateRepublicans. On those two sites, you will be able to see a new link, an additional link, so that you may go ahead and sign on if you want. I've also been told that Real America's Voice, One America News, and Victory TV are all live streaming this as well. So there are 3 other options that you can watch. We are also taping this for future reference. You know, we always said that if we have to go to court, we want to make sure that everything has been documented, and we want to make sure that everything is on the record. So this is being taped. Senator Peterson, to my right, is Senator Warren Peterson. He is chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He and I have been working closely with this, and I'll let you start.
Thank you, Madam President. So first, I think we just probably start with introductions. If the speakers who are here, as President Fan said, she's the Senate President. I'm the Judiciary Chairman, Warren Peterson. If we could just start with the 3 who are here to speak, if you could just introduce yourself and maybe provide us with some of your background and credentials. So we'll start here with Mr. Logan.
As you know, I'm Doug Logan. I'm the CEO of Cyber Ninjas. I've held several industry recognized certifications, such as the Certified Information System Security Professional, GIAC Web Application Penetration Tester, and the GIAC Certified Incident Handler.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I'm Ken Bennett. I'm the Senate liaison to the audit. And I have an accounting degree from Arizona State University and have been a private businessman for 35 years with a variety of companies, including a 83-year-old family business up in the Prescott area. Served as the Senate President from 2003 to 2007, also as a senator 4 years prior to that, so 8 years in the state Senate from 99 to 2007. I also served as the Secretary of State for the state of Arizona from 2009 until 2015. And as I said, I have been asked to be the Senate's liaison to the audit. Thank you.
My name is Ben Cotton. I am a court-recognized expert witness in digital forensics, in incident response, and I have over 25 years' experience performing these tasks, both for the U.S. government and for private industries such as law firms.
Those words were often used, such as integrity, accountability, chain of custody, beyond reproach, and transparency. And this was the culture that was developed for anyone that stepped in this building.
If you go to Chapter 8, I think it's 5, Roman numeral 5, subsection E, storage and security of ballots, it reads that official ballots must be inventoried upon receipt and prior to distribution to voting locations. Item 2 is they must be accessed by election staff only to the extent necessary to perform their authorized task. A key one, though, is 3rd, they must be stored in locked, secured location that prevents unauthorized access, as we have done. And in that number 3, it says it must be documented with a written log or with electronic keypad access that indicates the date, time, and identity of the person accessing the ballots. 4th, must be witnessed by 2 or more election staff members of different political parties if possible when being moved or transferred, which includes an inventory of the ballots before and after the move or transfer. And then the last item is very important as well, since we use ballot on-demand printers in many of the counties around Arizona, that the officer in charge of elections shall also implement reasonable security procedures for auditing and accountability of blank ballot stock for use with on-demand printers. So part of what we have been trying to get, in addition to the ballots themselves, is a chain of custody from the very beginning of the process when the county took ballot stock and or pre-printed ballots from their vendors, and a chain of custody ever since then, which is still forthcoming.
That was on the original subpoena,
Yes.
and we have not received it.
Mm-hmm.
Madam President, just if I may, Mr. Bennett, what's been the response when you've asked for that? When you But what did the county tell you?
They've provided us what they're going to provide us with.
Okay.
So are you saying they're refusing to give
Yeah.
us that information at this point?
Every time I've tried to interact with the folks at the elections department, I've been told that I need to deal with the county attorney's office, and most of that time I've received kind of the answer that we gave you everything we're going to give you.
Okay,
I'm trying not to be flippant, but
Yeah.
that's,
we appreciate that.
One of those digital copies as primary evidence. And so we lock that away in a U.S. government GSA-approved safe to ensure that no one would access it and that it is there as the primary evidence for the basis of our analysis. We then created examination copies that we have used for the determination of the cybersecurity status and other aspects of those systems. Okay. So I must reiterate, not a single bit of data was ever changed on any device that came into our possession.
So, Madam President, Mr. Cotton, are you saying that the machines were not damaged or tampered with in any way where they couldn't be used again? And if they were, you have implemented the, people could check and see whether that was done?
Senator, that is correct. So we have exactly a bit-for-bit image of these systems as we received them, okay? We did not modify, we did not change any chips, we did not access anything other than the hard drives for those systems. So if there were any changes to the original equipment, those had to have occurred within the custody of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, not with the custody of the auditors.
Okay.
So if there were any changes to the original equipment, those had to have occurred within the custody of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, not with the custody of the auditors.
Okay. So what have we not received from the county that we were supposed to get to be able to do the forensic analysis of?
I think if I'm going to put these in order of criticality, we have not received the router configuration files. We have not received the router data. And Mr. Bennett and myself were in multiple conversations with county officials in which they had agreed to provide that information to us. We had actually entered into a compromise with the county in which they would provide us with virtual access to that data, in addition to providing us with Splunk NetFlow data with a time period of approximately 90 days prior to the election and 60 days after the election. And we had agreed to that. We have not received that due to a response from the county in May stating that they would not provide that because the data would compromise law enforcement operations and would also potentially compromise PII information of Maricopa County residents that had not already been turned over as part of the audit request.
Okay, now tell us the significance of us not, why do you need to look at the routers and the router data and the Splunk logs that they originally told us they were going to give us, and now they have, they're not going to provide that, or they're saying they won't provide that. What's the significance? Why do we need to look at that?
Well, it's critically important to substantiate some findings that we are seeing through the keyword searching and the processes I've already mentioned. There are a number of things that we know as a matter of fact, have occurred that we need to further take that information and validate that information. So, for example, we know through public record, public statements, that an element of the election system was actually compromised or breached during the course of the November 2020 election. It is a matter of public statement by Maricopa County, as well as legal action and law enforcement action surrounding that particular incident. The registration server that was public facing did have unauthorized access to that. In cybersecurity terms, it was breached. We know that the county has accepted that as an unauthorized breach because they actually issued a letter to a small subset of the voters who were affected by that breach, and they issued that in January of 2021.
So, Madam President, Mr. Cotton, if they could have if they were able to get access, how long would it take somebody to hack in or whatever if they're?
The vulnerabilities that exist on these systems would take an average script kiddie less than 10 minutes to get access to these systems.
Okay, so this is high vulnerability situations. So we need to get the routers. It's clear we need to get the routers. We need, even if it's just a report, they can scan it, they can look at it, they can do whatever they need to do to make it safe. We just need to see the traffic during this election or during this period that you're looking for. Now, they've brought up security concerns. Are these, do you believe these are valid concerns that they've brought up from sharing the router traffic or router reports with us, anything from the router? Are these valid security concerns from your point of view?
They're not.
One of my concerns, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Please. When we received the letter from Sheriff Penzone stating that we would not get the routers because of a potential security issue, the one thing that stuck in my mind, I just heard you say that there is not a valid security concern there, but just hypothetically, if for some reason they think that there's a security concern, my question is why would they be using the same router as our election systems, as other, if there's even a small remote possibility that they think that somebody could be jeopardized? Why are we sharing routers with other agencies? Why don't they have their own personal secure router?
Ma'am, I can't answer why they shared that space, but once again, this is one of those situations where what they've told the public is drastically different than the apparent reality in response to a legal subpoena. Okay, so from a public response standpoint, Maricopa County officials have repeatedly stated that the election system was a closed system. It did not touch the internet, and therefore, it could not have commingled with the data from the Sheriff's Department or the Maricopa County other office space. The fact that they have responded back to an official subpoena with the justification that to produce that data would compromise these other aspects of the Maricopa County network that does touch the internet is an admission that maybe things aren't like what they've told the American public. Okay. When we took a look at this, we found specifically in March, and I believe it was March 11th, there were 37,646 queries for a blank password on a system that only contained 8 accounts. Now, given the short time period that happened, that clearly was a script that was executed by the user EMS admin. Okay. What we don't have, because of the lack of logs and the condition of that system, is where did that script come from? Okay? So by leveraging the router information and by leveraging the Splunk information, I should be able to determine who was using the EMS admin account at that particular time and where did that originate from.
And the reason we need the Splunk logs is because those 37,000 queries churned the data so that you can only look back to February 5th, or what was the date?
February 5th.
February 5th.
That is correct.
And obviously, we need to go back to the election.
Correct.
We need to be looking at the election day, prior to the election day, looking at access. So we don't have that, what we were given, we don't have that, that window, which is the critical window we need to look at.
That is correct.
Okay.
You know, you would think that any audit firm would be looking at, and that is commonality of passwords. So what we have found is that for all the administrative accounts, no matter what the name of that account was, they shared the same password. Okay? Now, that password appears to have been established at the same time that the Dominion software was installed on these systems, which August of 2019, and does not appear to have been changed during that entire time period. What we are seeing here, and what does require additional correlation with NetFlow data, is we're seeing anonymous logins at the system level that do not follow that pattern of normal Windows behavior. Okay? And so we need to have that additional data to validate what that activity is.
Thank you.
Now, specifically, we should not have had problems with bleed through. If you scroll down a little bit farther and zoom in where we've got the red box, this is actually a newsletter that was put out by Maricopa County that talks about the paper types that are utilized. And specifically, they state that they use VoteSecure paper. Now, if VoteSecure paper is utilized, it's actually a thick paper. It has a special coating on it that helps make sure there isn't bleed through. And so it would help ensure that bleed through wouldn't be a problem even if things happen to be not perfectly calibrated. But if you scroll down to the next page, we're going to give you an example of an actual ballot where you can see the bleed through that goes through.
On the ballots.
Yeah, based on our discussions with paper experts, they specifically state that that paper is thick enough that it wouldn't bleed through, and we are seeing a lot of very thin paper stock being utilized, especially on election day.
Okay.
But there's a lot of ballot on demands that are printed at the actual voting centers, and those had large offsets.
Do we know how many ballots on demand there were or not? Is there any records of
So it would
those?
be roughly 168,000, which would be the election day ballots.
So those were
We
all
are
ballots
seeing-
on demand?
Yeah, we are seeing more than that where this offset occurred. And so we're trying to drill into what printers and where and what that's tied to.
How do we verify, so Maricopa County is saying we only use 4 types of paper and they're all secure, and we're saying they're not. How do we prove that? What is the best way to get that documentation to say what the truth really is? Can you help me with that?
Yeah, certainly. We can request information on the purchasing of paper that was utilized for ballots, what their quantities were and where they were utilized. We can get information on what printers were utilized at different locations, and all of that can help tie together to make more sense out of the information we have.
Great. Okay, great. Let's go to what we call voter data analysis, and because this ties in directly with the canvassing, our contract, the Senate contract with you, and your proposal for work, one of those items was canvassing to be able to actually verify if you found any information, and the only or best way to verify it is to actually go to that person. And I've always used the example because I do know of a case where one house got 25 ballots in the mail and only 2 people lived there. And so we had talked about how do we verify that, and there was a question about canvassing. Department of Justice sent us a letter about 4 or 6 weeks ago and said, we're concerned about you actually knocking on doors, that you might, might be voter intimidation or civil rights violation or something, which I find is interesting after the White House last week said, we're going to knock on doors to see whether you're vaccinated or not. But that's a side point, just a little side point. But so we told the Department of Justice that we would postpone that indefinitely until your audit was at a point where we could even determine whether that was going to be necessary or not. So can you talk to us about that, and is it going to be necessary? Is it not? Go into that part for me, please.
Yeah, based on the data we're seeing, I highly recommend we do the canvassing, because it's the one way to know for sure whether some of the data we're seeing, if it's real problems or whether it's clerical errors of some sort. So for example, we have 74,243 mail-in ballots where there is no clear record of them being sent. And just to be clear, here in the state of Arizona, there's EV32s and EV33s. EV32s is supposed to give a record of when a mail-in ballot is sent, and an EV33 is supposed to give a record of when the mail-in ballot is received. And so there should be an equal, there should be more EV32s, more sent out than there are that are received. Specifically with these, we can tie them to a specific individual that was mailed to. And so we have 74,000 where we have them came back from individuals where we don't have a clear indication that they were ever sent out to them. Okay. So we have also seen some interesting things related to the voter rolls. So for example, we have 11,326 people that did not show up on a November 7th version of the voter rolls that should have been after votes were cast, but then appeared on the December 4th voter rolls. And just to be clear, they show as voted in this past election, but they were not a November 7th version of the file, and they did show up on the December 4th version.
Okay, that sounds confusing.
I-
Give me an explanation of why that might have, I mean, we're not saying there's fraud, we're not saying anything else. I'm just trying to find answers. Is there a logical explanation why that would be?
I cannot think of a logical explanation on what that would be, but it'd be a great thing to hear back from the county to see if there's anything that we're not thinking of.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
So we have, from what I understand here in Arizona, they originally Hobbs had requested that the registration date for voting be moved up to Election Day, and there was actually a court case that moved it back to October 15th. Based on the registration information that we found in the voter rolls, we have 3,981 individuals who show as having voted in this election, and their data shows up in the canvas as having voted in this election. However, they were registered after October 15th.
Continue.
The last one I have is we have roughly 20,000, I think it was actually closer to 18,000, who voted in the election and then showed as being removed from the voter rolls soon after the election. So they were on the voter rolls, they showed as voted, and then they were removed. And there could be a good logical explanation for that, but it seems like a large number to immediately have after an election be removed. And so getting more documentation on the request to remove from voter rolls or other process to make sure that makes sense seems logical. In addition, again, knocking on doors and canvassing can help validate that information.
Okay. Envelopes, that's an issue that we've been talking about. Would you like to touch on that as well?
Yeah, we've had an affidavit that specifically stated that when mail-in ballots were received, that so many of them were received, that the standards reduced over time. They originally talked about there was initially 20 points of comparison on the signature, and then after some time they're told to go to 10 points of signature, 10 points of comparison, then 5, and then eventually they were just told to let every single mail-in ballot through. So we think it's important, understand with the course of our settlement, the only thing we can look at is blank signatures, but we think it's important to get the mail-in ballot images and see how many, if any, blank signatures came through.
Or what was said?
I would simply recommend, Madam President, that they be re-subpoenaed as almost maybe a separate item and on a separate device, and it's not commingled with other folders or anything else.
But I guess her question is, what has been their response when you asked for? We need the images of the ballots. We need-
Envelopes.
Of the, I'm sorry, we need the images of the envelopes that were mailed. They said they gave us a file. It's not on the file. When you ask, you tell them we don't have those, what is the response? What has the response been to you?
It's on the Lacey 5 terabyte hard drive in a affidavits folder that's 1.83 terabytes big. And we keep looking for it and don't find it.
If I might add, I did an extensive forensic search for the mail-in ballots. The only images that are contained on the referenced Lacey drive are the original voter registration affidavits. Nothing to do with mail-in ballots.
Just back to what you said about working together. It is unfortunate that the county has been recalcitrant. That doesn't breed trust. It slows things down. It makes things difficult.
So we will be asking for this additional information. We'll find out whether, I'm guessing we're going to have to go back to court unless Maricopa County will say, yes, let's work on this together, which I thought we would do. I do not know why Maricopa County has fought this so hard. If it's their electoral system, I would think they would want to know that everything is operating the way it should, and I believe that our Secretary of State would feel the same way. So we will endeavor to keep getting the answers. What do they say? The whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. And we'll move forward and get whatever we can to help you finish this audit.